Welcome to Wonderful Stories, a place where imagination comes alive. So let's begin.
Part 1. The Man Who Said No. The first thing Kang Min-hyuk noticed was the silence. Not the empty silence of his office on the 47th floor. Not the suffocating silence of boardrooms where people feared him too much to speak freely. This silence was alive. It carried the sound of wind brushing over leaves, the distant hum of insects, the soft rustle of something growing. It was peaceful, and in the middle of it stood the man who had rejected him. Han Ji-woo. He was kneeling in the dirt, carefully lifting strawberries into a wooden basket as if each one was fragile. Precious. Min-hyuk stepped out of his car, his expensive shoes immediately sinking slightly into the soil. He hated dirt, but he kept walking. Ji-woo didn't look up. He didn't bow, didn't greet him, didn't even acknowledge his presence. No one had ever ignored Kang Min-hyuk before. He stopped a few steps away. "You received my offer." Ji-woo placed another strawberry into the basket before answering. "Yes." His voice was soft, calm. Min-hyuk waited. Ji-woo said nothing else. Min-hyuk's jaw tightened slightly. And Ji-woo finally looked up. And Min-hyuk felt something strange in his chest. Ji-woo's face was gentle, not sharp or intimidating. His features were soft, framed by slightly messy brown hair that fell into his eyes. His skin was warm from the sun. His lips pink from unconsciously biting them while concentrating. But it was his eyes. They were kind, but firm. "I won't sell." Min-hyuk frowned. "You didn't even negotiate." "I don't want to." Min-hyuk wasn't used to this. People always wanted more money. They begged for it, chased it. "I'm offering you more than anyone else ever will." Ji-woo smiled faintly. It wasn't mocking. It wasn't bitter. It was simply certain. "I know." "Then why refuse?" Ji-woo looked around his farm. At the rows of strawberries. At the small wooden house behind him. At the land beneath his knees. "My parents built this place," he said quietly. Min-hyuk said nothing. Ji-woo continued. "They spent their whole lives here." His fingers brushed the leaves beside him. "I grew up running through these fields. I learned how to walk here. How to work. How to live." He looked back at Min-hyuk. "This isn't just land to me." Min-hyuk felt something twist in his chest. He didn't like it. "Everything has a price." Ji-woo shook his head gently. "Not everything." Min-hyuk stared at him. This man was naive, or stubborn, or both. Min-hyuk had built his empire from nothing. He knew exactly how the world worked. Everything could be bought. Everything. "Think carefully," Min-hyuk said coldly. "Opportunities like this don't come twice." Ji-woo's smile didn't fade. "I know." Min-hyuk waited. Ji-woo met his eyes. "I still won't sell." Silence fell between them. Min-hyuk should have left. Should have returned to Seoul. Should have forgotten about this insignificant farmer. But he didn't, because for the first time in years, someone had chosen something over money. And Min-hyuk didn't understand why. Ji-woo watched the expensive car disappear down the road. Only when it was gone did he let out the breath he had been holding. His hands trembled slightly. He wasn't fearless. Kang Min-hyuk was powerful. Everyone knew that. He could destroy Ji-woo's life if he wanted. But still, Ji-woo couldn't sell. This farm was everything. It was the only place where he didn't feel alone. He picked up another strawberry. His parents' voices echoed in his memory. His mother laughing. His father teaching him how to plant seeds. He couldn't lose that, even for billions. Min-hyuk sat in the back seat of his car. He stared out the window. But he wasn't seeing the road. He was seeing Ji-woo. The way his soft hair moved in the wind. The way his hands carefully held the strawberries. The way he said no. Min-hyuk clenched his fist slightly. Annoying. That's what it was. He wasn't fascinated. He wasn't curious. He was annoyed. Because he couldn't control him. His assistant hesitated before speaking. "Sir, should I prepare a higher offer?" Min-hyuk was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "No." The assistant blinked. "Number, sir." Min-hyuk's voice was calm. "I'll handle it myself." He didn't know why he said that. He had never personally chased a single piece of land before. But this time, he wanted to. The next morning, Ji-woo stepped outside with his basket. And froze. Kang Min-hyuk was standing there. Again, wearing the same perfect suit. Looking completely out of place. Ji-woo blinked. "You're back." Min-hyuk didn't answer immediately. He was looking at Ji-woo like he was studying him. Observing him. "I told you," Ji-woo said gently. "I won't sell." Min-hyuk walked closer. "I'm not here to talk about the contract." Ji-woo frowned slightly. "Then why?" Min-hyuk stopped in front of him. Close. Too close. Ji-woo could see how flawless his face was. How cold his eyes were. But beneath the cold, There was something else, something Ji-woo couldn't name. Min-hyuk spoke quietly. Teach me. Ji-woo blinked. What? Min-hyuk gestured to the field. This. Ji-woo stared at him in disbelief. You're joking. I'm not. Ji-woo laughed softly. It was the first time Min-hyuk had heard him laugh. And it did something strange to his heart. You're a billionaire. And you've probably never even touched dirt before. Min-hyuk didn't deny it. That's why I'm asking. Ji-woo studied him carefully. He didn't understand this man. Didn't understand why he was here. But there was no arrogance in his voice. No mockery. Just quiet determination. Ji-woo hesitated. Then he held out a strawberry. Here. Min-hyuk looked at it. Then at him. Ji-woo smiled. Try it. Min-hyuk slowly took it. Their fingers brushed. Just for a second. But it was enough. Ji-woo quickly pulled his hand back. Min-hyuk felt the warmth disappear. He didn't like that. He bit into the strawberry. And froze. It was sweet. Sweeter than anything he had ever tasted. Not artificial. Not manufactured. Real. Ji-woo watched his expression nervously. Well, Min-hyuk looked at him. And for the first time, he smiled. It was small. Barely there. But real. It's good. Ji-woo's face lit up. And Kang Min-hyuk felt his heart stumble. He didn't understand it yet. But at that moment, the billionaire who owned everything had just begun to lose his heart. Part 2. The billionaire who learned to kneel in the dirt. Kang Min-hyuk returned the next morning. In the morning after that. In the morning after that. At exactly 7 a.m. Always in a suit. Always standing awkwardly at the edge of the strawberry field like he didn't belong there. Which he didn't. Ji-woo noticed, of course. It was impossible not to. The most powerful CEO in the country standing in his farm like a lost statue. Watching him. Waiting. Ji-woo pretended not to notice at first. He continued his routine. Water the plants. Check the soil. Pick the ripe strawberries. But Min-hyuk never left. He just stood there. Silent. Patient. On the fourth day, Ji-woo finally sighed and walked toward him. You'll ruin your shoes. Min-hyuk looked down. His expensive leather shoes were already dirty. He didn't seem to care. I'll buy new ones. Ji-woo frowned. That's not the point. Min-hyuk tilted his head slightly. Then what is? Ji-woo hesitated. He didn't know how to explain it. This man lived in a world where everything could be replaced. Shoes, homes, even people. Ji-woo spoke softly. Things should be taken care of. Min-hyuk stared at him. Ji-woo gestured to the field. These plants, they grow because I care for them every day. If I ignore them, they die. Min-hyuk's voice was quiet. And if you sell them, Ji-woo met his eyes. They won't be mine anymore. Something about that answer made Min-hyuk's chest feel heavy. He didn't understand why. Ji-woo crossed his arms. Why do you keep coming here? Min-hyuk answered honestly. I don't know. Ji-woo blinked. Min-hyuk continued. I built my company to control food production. To make it efficient. Perfect. His gaze shifted to the strawberries. But yours. He hesitated. They're different. Ji-woo didn't speak. Min-hyuk looked at him again. They taste alive. Ji-woo's cheeks turned slightly pink. He wasn't used to compliments. Especially from someone like him. Min-hyuk spoke again. You said you would teach me. Ji-woo sighed. You're serious? Yes. Ji-woo looked down at his perfect suit. Then back at his serious expression. He realized something. This man wasn't joking. He really wanted to learn. Ji-woo walked past him. Follow me. Min-hyuk did. Ji-woo stopped in the middle of the field and held out a pair of gloves. Put these on. Min-hyuk stared at them. I've never worn work gloves before. Ji-woo smiled faintly. Then this will be your first time. Min-hyuk took them. Their fingers brushed again. Ji-woo quickly let go. Min-hyuk noticed. He always noticed. Min-hyuk put the gloves on. They felt strange. Heavy. Real. Ji-woo knelt down and gestured beside him. Kneel. Min-hyuk froze. Kneel. Ji-woo nodded. That's how you pick them. Min-hyuk had never knelt for anyone. Not for business partners. Not for investors. Not for anyone. But he did. He lowered himself into the dirt. His expensive pants immediately became dirty. Ji-woo's eyes widened slightly. You didn't hesitate. Min-hyuk answered simply. You told me to. Ji-woo's heart skipped. He didn't understand why. Ji-woo picked up a strawberry gently. Not this one. He moved his hand. This one. He carefully plucked it. See the color. It has to be fully red. Min-hyuk watched closely. Ji-woo handed it to him. Try. Min-hyuk reached forward. His large hand moved awkwardly. He grabbed the strawberry. And accidentally crushed it. Juice spilled over his glove. Min-hyuk froze. I broke it. Ji-woo laughed. It was soft. Warm. Beautiful. That happens. Min-hyuk stared at him. Ji-woo quickly looked away, embarrassed. Min-hyuk's chest tightened. He wanted to hear that laugh again. Ji-woo picked another strawberry. Gently, he said. Min-hyuk tried again. This time, he was careful. Slow. Focused. He picked it. Successfully. He looked at Ji-woo. I did it. Ji-woo smiled. Yes. Min-hyuk felt something bloom inside his chest. Something warm. Something unfamiliar. They worked in silence after that. Side by side. Farmer and billionaire. Dirt and luxury. Two different worlds touching for the first time. After an hour, Ji-woo stood up. You can stop now. Min-hyuk looked at his dirty clothes. His ruined shoes. His stained gloves. I don't hate it. Ji-woo blinked. You don't. Min-hyuk shook his head. He looked at his hands. I made something. Ji-woo's heart softened. Yes. Min-hyuk looked at him. You do this every day. Yes. Min-hyuk spoke quietly. It must get lonely. Ji-woo froze. He didn't expect that question. He forced a smile. I'm used to it, but Min-hyuk could see the truth. Used to it didn't mean it didn't hurt. Without thinking, Min-hyuk said. Then I'll come back. Ji-woo's eyes widened. You don't need to. I want to. Silence. Ji-woo's heart beat faster. He didn't know why that made him happy. It shouldn't. This man was only here for business. Eventually, he would leave. Everyone did. Ji-woo spoke quietly. You're strange. Min-hyuk asked. Is that bad? Ji-woo looked at him. At his messy hair, his dirty clothes, his serious eyes, and smiled. Number. Min-hyuk felt his heart stumble again. He didn't understand what was happening to him. He only knew one thing. For the first time in his life, he didn't want to leave. And Han Ji-woo, the farmer who refused to sell his land, was slowly becoming someone Kang Min-hyuk couldn't live without. End of part 2. Next. Part 3. The day the billionaire smiled first. This is where Min-hyuk starts protecting Ji-woo. Ji-woo starts depending on him. Their bond deepens, and the first real emotional crack appears. Part 3. The day the billionaire smiled first. By the second week, Kang Min-hyuk stopped wearing suits. Ji-woo noticed immediately. He arrived that morning in a plain black shirt and dark jeans. They were still expensive. Ji-woo could tell from the fit and fabric, but they weren't out of place anymore. He looked human. Ji-woo tried not to stare. You're late, Ji-woo said softly. It was only 5 minutes past 7. Min-hyuk frowned slightly. I had a meeting. You're a CEO. Don't you always have meetings? Yes. Then why come here? Min-hyuk answered without hesitation. Because I want to. Ji-woo's fingers tightened slightly around the basket he was holding. He turned away quickly so Min-hyuk wouldn't see his face. Come on, Ji-woo said. The strawberries won't pick themselves. Min-hyuk followed. He had learned quickly. He no longer crushed the fruit. He no longer hesitated to kneel in the dirt. His hands were still softer than Ji-woo's. But they were trying, and Ji-woo noticed. They worked side by side in comfortable silence. Not awkward, not forced, peaceful. After a while, Ji-woo spoke. You don't have to keep doing this. Min-hyuk didn't look up. I know, you're not gaining anything. Min-hyuk glanced at him. That's not true. Ji-woo tilted his head. What are you gaining? Min-hyuk hesitated. He didn't know how to explain it. How do you explain peace to someone when you've lived your whole life in war? Quiet, he said finally. Ji-woo's expression softened. He understood that, more than Min-hyuk realized. Later that afternoon, Ji-woo carried the harvest crates toward the small storage shed. Min-hyuk watched him. Ji-woo was smaller than him. Thinner. But he carried heavy boxes without complaining. Without asking for help, Min-hyuk stood up and walked over. I'll carry that. Ji-woo blinked. You don't need to. Min-hyuk took the crate from his hands anyway. Ji-woo froze. Their fingers brushed. Min-hyuk didn't let go immediately. Ji-woo's breath caught. For a second, just 1 second, they stood too close. Ji-woo could see everything. The sharp line of Min-hyuk's jaw. The softness in his dark eyes. The warmth he tried to hide. Min-hyuk realized it too. He stepped back quickly. I'll take it inside. Ji-woo nodded silently. His heart wouldn't calm down. That evening, clouds filled the sky. Ji-woo noticed immediately. Rain was coming. He moved quickly, trying to secure everything. Min-hyuk watched him. You're rushing. It's going to rain. So, Ji-woo looked at him like he was crazy. So, if the strawberries get damaged, I lose everything. Min-hyuk frowned. Everything. That word again. Ji-woo grabbed another crate. But suddenly, thunder cracked. Ji-woo flinched. The first raindrops fell. Then more, and more. Within seconds, the sky opened. Heavy rain poured over the field. Ji Woo panicked. No. He ran forward, trying to cover the plants. But it was too much. Too fast. Min-hyuk grabbed his arm. Stop. Ji Woo struggled. I have to protect them. You'll get hurt. I don't care. Ji Woo pulled away. He slipped, and fell hard into the mud. Min-hyuk's heart stopped. He rushed forward. Ji Woo. Ji Woo sat there in the dirt. Soaked. Breathing hard. His hands trembling. Min-hyuk knelt in front of him. Are you hurt? Ji Woo didn't answer. He stared at the ground. I couldn't protect them. His voice broke. It was quiet. Fragile. Min-hyuk felt something shatter inside his chest. This man. He cared so much. Too much. Min-hyuk reached out. Then hesitated. He didn't know how to comfort someone. He had never needed to before. But Ji Woo looked so small. So alone. Min-hyuk gently took his hand. Ji Woo froze. His hands were cold. Shaking. Min-hyuk held them carefully. They're not ruined. Ji Woo whispered. You don't know that. Min-hyuk spoke firmly. Then we'll fix it. Ji Woo looked up. We. Min-hyuk met his eyes. Yes. Ji Woo's vision blurred. He didn't realize he was crying until Min-hyuk lifted his hand and wiped the tear from his cheek. Ji Woo stopped breathing. Min-hyuk froze too. He hadn't meant to. It was instinct. Ji Woo's skin was warm. Soft. Min-hyuk's thumb lingered. They stared at each other. Rain fell around them. The world disappeared. For the first time, Ji Woo saw it clearly. Min-hyuk wasn't cold. He was just lonely. Min-hyuk spoke quietly. You don't have to carry everything alone. Ji Woo's heart broke. Because no one had ever said that to him before. Ji Woo whispered. Why are you being kind to me? Min-hyuk didn't know how to answer. Because he didn't understand it himself. He only knew one truth. Because it's you. Ji Woo's breath caught. Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. Beautiful. Then, Min-hyuk smiled. It was small. Gentle. Real. Ji Woo stared at him. You're smiling. Min-hyuk didn't realize it. I am. Ji Woo nodded slowly. It's beautiful. Min-hyuk's heart stopped. No one had ever called him beautiful before. Not like that. Not softly. Not honestly. In that moment, standing in the rain, holding Han Ji Woo's hand, Kang Min-hyuk realized something terrifying. He didn't want the farm anymore. He didn't want the land. He didn't want the business. He only wanted him, and that was far more dangerous. Part 4. The day the world tried to take Ji Woo away. The first sign that something was wrong came in a white envelope. Ji Woo found it in his mailbox early in the morning, tucked between fertilizer bills and a grocery receipt. It looked official, cold, important. His name was printed neatly on the front. Han Ji Woo. He frowned slightly and opened it. As he read, the color slowly drained from his face. His hands began to tremble. He read it again, and again, but the words didn't change. Notice of land acquisition intent. From Hansing Food Group, the company owned by Kang Min-hyuk. Ji Woo's vision blurred. They were trying to acquire his land. Legally, formally, without speaking to him, without asking him, without telling him. His chest tightened painfully. He stood there for a long time. Silent, frozen. The morning sun rose, but he felt cold. Min-hyuk arrived at the farm like he always did. 7 in the morning. He carried coffee. He had learned Ji Woo liked it sweet. He stepped out of his car, and immediately knew something was wrong. Ji Woo wasn't in the field. He was sitting on the wooden steps of his house, holding something. Min-hyuk walked closer. Ji Woo. No response. Min-hyuk's chest tightened. Ji Woo. Ji Woo slowly looked up. His eyes were red. Min-hyuk froze. What happened? Ji Woo didn't answer. He simply held out the letter. Min-hyuk took it. As he read it, his blood ran cold. He had never seen this before. He had never approved this. His voice dropped dangerously. Who sent this? Ji Woo let out a weak laugh. Your company. Min-hyuk's hands tightened around the paper. They had no authority to do this. Ji Woo stared at him. Does it matter? Min-hyuk looked up, and what he saw terrified him. Ji Woo's eyes were full of hurt. Not anger. Not hatred. Hurt. You were always going to take it anyway, Ji Woo whispered. Min-hyuk's heart dropped. No. Ji Woo stood up. You just decided to do it the legal way. That's not true, isn't it? Min-hyuk stepped closer. I didn't know about this. Ji Woo shook his head. You're the CEO. His voice broke. How could you not know? Min-hyuk had no answer. Because Ji Woo was right. He should have known. He should have protected him. Ji Woo's hands trembled at his sides. I trusted you. Min-hyuk stopped breathing. 3 words, but they shattered him. I thought. Ji Woo's voice cracked. I thought you were different. Min-hyuk reached for him. Ji Woo stepped back. That small movement hurt more than anything else. Ji-woo, please, don't. His voice was quiet, broken. Don't come here anymore. Min-hyuk froze. What? Ji-woo couldn't look at him. I don't want to see you. Min-hyuk's chest tightened painfully. You don't mean that. Ji-woo whispered. I do. Silence. The world felt like it stopped. Min-hyuk had faced bankruptcy, betrayal, failure, but nothing had ever hurt like this. Ji-woo spoke again. I knew someone like you could never stay. Min-hyuk felt something break inside him. Because Ji-woo wasn't just talking about business anymore. He was talking about his heart. Ji-woo turned away. Please leave. Min-hyuk couldn't move. For the first time in his life, he was powerless. He had money, influence, control, but none of it mattered. Because the only person he cared about didn't want him anymore. Min-hyuk forced himself to speak. I'll fix it. Ji-woo didn't answer. Min-hyuk's voice was barely above a whisper. I promise. Ji-woo closed his eyes. But he didn't stop him. He didn't believe him, and that hurt more than anything. Min-hyuk turned and walked away. Each step felt heavier than the last. He didn't look back, because he was afraid. If he did, he wouldn't be able to leave. That night, Min-hyuk sat alone in his office. The city lights glowed beneath him, cold, distant, empty. The letter sat on his desk, mocking him. His phone rang. He didn't answer. It rang again, and again. Finally, he picked it up. What? His assistant's voice was nervous. Sir, the board approved the acquisition this morning. Min-hyuk's voice dropped. Without me, they said it was a strategic necessity. Min-hyuk's hand clenched. Strategic. They were talking about Ji-woo's home like it was nothing. Like it was disposable. Like he was disposable. Min-hyuk spoke slowly. Cancel it. Silence. Sir, I said cancel it. The board won't agree. Min-hyuk's eyes darkened. They don't need to. His assistant hesitated. Sir, this could damage your position. Min-hyuk didn't care, because for the first time in his life, there was something more important than power. Do it. He hung up. He leaned back in his chair and covered his eyes. He could still see Ji-woo's face. The hurt, the disappointment, the betrayal. Min-hyuk whispered into the empty room. I'm sorry, but Ji-woo wasn't there to hear it. And that was his punishment. Back at the farm, Ji-woo sat alone in the dark. The field was quiet, empty. He stared at the place where Min-hyuk used to stand. Waiting, smiling, learning. His chest hurt. He told himself it didn't matter. That Min-hyuk was just a businessman. That none of it was real. But his heart didn't listen. A tear slid down his cheek. I was stupid. He had believed him. Believed his kindness. Believed his smile. Believed that he stayed because he cared. Ji-woo wiped his tears quickly. It didn't matter anymore, because people like Kang Min-hyuk never stayed. Across the city, Kang Min-hyuk stared out at the night sky and realized something too late. He wasn't fighting for land anymore. He was fighting for love, and he had no idea if he had already lost. Part 5. The billionaire who chose the farmer over his empire. Kang Min-hyuk did not sleep. Not that night, not the next, not when he closed his eyes and saw Ji-woo's face turning away from him again and again. He sat alone in his office as the sun rose over Seoul, painting the glass walls gold. It was beautiful, but he felt nothing. His assistant stood nervously in front of his desk. Sir, the board is waiting. Min-hyuk didn't answer. His fingers rested on the acquisition document. Han Ji-woo's name stared back at him. Cold, official, wrong. Sir, Min-hyuk finally spoke. Prepare a press conference. The assistant blinked. A press conference? Yes. For what purpose, sir? Min-hyuk's voice was calm, but his eyes were not. To cancel the acquisition. The assistant's face went pale. Sir, if you do that publicly, I know, you could lose investor trust. I know, the board may try to remove you. Min-hyuk didn't hesitate. I know. Silence filled the room. The assistant whispered, is it really worth it? Min-hyuk thought of Ji-woo. His soft voice, his gentle smile, the way he looked at him like he mattered. Yes, the press conference was chaos. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Min-hyuk stood at the podium. Perfect, cold, untouchable, just like always. But inside, he was terrified, because this was the first decision he had ever made, not as a CEO, but as a man in love. He spoke clearly. Hansing Food Group will be officially withdrawing the land acquisition request for the agricultural property owned by Han Ji-woo. The room exploded. Why? Is this a strategic retreat? Did the owner threaten legal action? Are there internal conflicts? Min-hyuk answered simply, no. Silence. A reporter asked, then why withdraw? Min-hyuk hesitated, just for a second, then he said the truth. Because it was wrong. Gasps filled the room. He continued, no amount of profit justifies taking something that belongs to someone else. His hands tightened slightly. That land is not ours. He stepped away from the podium, ignoring the shouting, ignoring the chaos, ignoring the consequences, because none of it mattered. Not compared to Ji-woo. Ji-woo heard the news on the radio. He froze in the middle of his field. The announcer's voice echoed through the quiet air. CEO Kang Min-hyuk has officially cancelled the acquisition. Ji-woo's heart stopped. The basket slipped from his hands. Strawberries spilled into the dirt. He didn't notice. His chest tightened painfully. He turned the radio off. His hands trembled. Why? He didn't understand. Min-hyuk didn't have to do that. He could have taken the land. Legally. Easily. So why didn't he? Ji-woo's heart whispered the answer. Because he kept his promise. Ji-woo covered his mouth. His eyes burned. Min-hyuk didn't return to the farm. Not that day. Not the next. Not the next. Ji-woo noticed. Of course he noticed. The field felt empty. Lonely. Ji-woo told himself it was for the best. That this was how it should be. But his heart missed him. Missed his quiet presence. Missed his awkward hands. Missed his small, rare smiles. Ji-woo sat on the wooden steps alone. You promised you'd come back. He laughed weakly. I guess this is goodbye. Min-hyuk stood outside the farm. He hadn't moved for 10 minutes. His heart pounded. He was afraid. Afraid Ji-woo wouldn't want to see him. Afraid he had ruined everything. But he couldn't stay away. Not anymore. He walked forward. Ji-woo looked up. And froze. They stared at each other. Silence stretched between them. Ji-woo's voice was barely a whisper. Why are you here? Min-hyuk swallowed. I cancelled it. Ji-woo nodded. I know. Silence again. Min-hyuk spoke carefully. I didn't know about it before. Ji-woo didn't answer. Min-hyuk stepped closer. But that doesn't matter. Ji-woo's hands tightened. Min-hyuk continued. I should have protected you. Ji-woo's eyes filled with tears. Min-hyuk's voice broke slightly. I'm sorry. Ji-woo looked away. His heart hurt. Because he believed him. Min-hyuk whispered. I never wanted your land. Ji-woo asked quietly. Then why did you stay? Min-hyuk froze. Because this was the truth he had been avoiding. The truth that terrified him. He answered honestly. Because of you. Ji-woo's breath caught. Min-hyuk continued. I stayed because you made me feel something I've never felt before. His voice was soft. Fragile. Peace. Ji-woo's vision blurred. Min-hyuk took another step closer. I know I don't deserve your trust. Ji-woo's heart broke. But I want to earn it back. Silence. Ji-woo whispered. Why? Min-hyuk's answer was barely audible. Because I love you. The world stopped. Ji-woo stopped breathing. He stared at him. What? Min-hyuk's hands trembled slightly. I love you. It was the first time he had ever said it. To anyone. Ji-woo's tears fell. You're lying. I'm not. You don't even know me. I do. Min-hyuk stepped closer. You love your farm more than yourself. Ji-woo's chest tightened. You smile when the strawberries grow. His voice shook. You pretend to be strong even when you're hurting. Ji-woo couldn't stop crying. And you taught me how to live. Silence. Min-hyuk whispered. I don't care about the land. He looked into Ji-woo's eyes. I just want you. Ji-woo's heart shattered. Because he loved him too. He had loved him long before he realized it. But he was afraid. Afraid of losing him. Afraid of being hurt again. Ji-woo whispered. You'll leave. Min-hyuk shook his head. I won't. You have your world. Min-hyuk answered. My world is wherever you are. Ji-woo broke. He stepped forward. And collapsed into Min-hyuk's arms. Min-hyuk froze. Then held him. Carefully. Like he was something precious. Ji-woo cried into his chest. You hurt me. Min-hyuk held him tighter. I know. I hate you. Min-hyuk whispered. I know. Ji-woo's voice broke. I love you. Min-hyuk stopped breathing. He closed his eyes. And held him closer. Because he had almost lost him. And he would never let him go again. Part 6. The night they stopped pretending. After the confession, nothing felt the same. And yet, everything felt exactly as it should. Han Ji-woo stood in Kang Min-hyuk's arms, his face pressed against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. It was strong, warm, real. Min-hyuk held him like he was afraid he might disappear. Like if he loosened his grip even a little, Ji-woo would slip away again. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. Because for the first time since they met, there were no walls between them. Ji-woo's fingers slowly curled into Min-hyuk's shirt. You really love me? His voice was small, vulnerable. Min-hyuk answered immediately. Yes. No hesitation. No doubt. Ji-woo pulled back slightly and looked up at him. His eyes were still wet with tears. Why? Min-hyuk gently touched his cheek. Because you're you. Ji-woo's lips trembled. That's not a reason. It is to me. Ji-woo searched his face. Looking for lies. For hesitation. He found none. Only quiet certainty. Ji-woo laughed weakly. You're unfair. Min-hyuk frowned slightly. How? You say things like that so easily. Min-hyuk shook his head. It's not easy. Ji-woo blinked. Min-hyuk's voice dropped. I've never said it before. Ji-woo's heart skipped. Never. Min-hyuk nodded. You're the first. Ji-woo felt his face grow warm. His chest filled with something soft. Something fragile. Something precious. Silence settled between them again. But this time, it wasn't painful. It was peaceful. Ji-woo hesitated before speaking. Do you have to go back? Min-hyuk understood what he meant. Seoul. His company. His world. He answered honestly. Eventually. Ji-woo's heart tightened. Min-hyuk quickly added. But not tonight. Ji-woo looked up. Not tonight. Min-hyuk shook his head. I want to stay. Ji-woo's breath caught. Stay. Here. With him. In his small house. In his small world. Ji-woo whispered. Okay. That evening, they sat side by side on the wooden floor of Ji-woo's home. The house was simple. Small. Warm. Min-hyuk had never been inside before. He looked around quietly. Photos hung on the walls. Ji-woo as a child. Ji-woo with his parents. Ji-woo smiling. Min-hyuk stared at one photo longer than the others. Ji-woo noticed. That was my birthday. Min-hyuk glanced at him. You look happy. Ji-woo smiled faintly. I was. Min-hyuk hesitated. You don't smile like that anymore. Ji-woo froze. He hadn't realized. Min-hyuk spoke softly. I want to see that smile again. Ji-woo's heart ached. You already have. Min-hyuk shook his head. Not enough. Ji-woo laughed quietly. You're greedy. Min-hyuk didn't deny it. Yes. Ji-woo's chest felt warm. They ate dinner together. Simple food. Rice. Vegetables. Soup. Min-hyuk had eaten in the most expensive restaurants in the world. But nothing had ever tasted like this. It's good, he said. Ji-woo smiled shyly. I'm glad. After dinner, the night grew quiet. They sat outside, watching the stars. The air was cool, peaceful. Ji-woo whispered. Do you ever regret it? Min-hyuk looked at him. Regret what? Choosing me over your company. Min-hyuk didn't hesitate. No. Ji-woo's chest tightened. What if you lose everything? Min-hyuk answered simply. I won't lose you. Ji-woo's breath caught. Min-hyuk reached for his hand. Slowly, carefully, giving him time to pull away. Ji-woo didn't. Their fingers intertwined. Ji-woo's hand was smaller. Softer. But it fit perfectly in his. Ji-woo's heart pounded. Min-hyuk. Yes. Ji-woo hesitated. Then whispered. Can I kiss you? Min-hyuk stopped breathing. He had imagined it, wanted it, dreamed of it, but hearing Ji-woo ask, it shattered him. Min-hyuk answered softly. Yes. Ji-woo moved closer. Slow. Nervous. His free hand trembled, slightly as it touched Min-hyuk's chest. He could feel his heartbeat. Fast. Just like his own. Ji-woo leaned in. Their foreheads touched first. Warm. Intimate. Their noses brushed. Ji-woo hesitated. Is this okay? Min-hyuk whispered. Yes. Ji-woo closed his eyes. And kissed him. It was soft. Gentle. Careful. Like he was afraid of breaking him. Min-hyuk froze for a second. Then he kissed him back. His hand moved to Ji-woo's waist, pulling him closer. Ji-woo gasped softly against his lips. The sound made Min-hyuk's heart race. They kissed slowly, learning each other, feeling each other, loving each other. When they finally pulled apart, Ji-woo's face was red, his lips swollen, his eyes shy. Min-hyuk touched his cheek. You're beautiful. Ji-woo hid his face in his shoulder. You're unfair. Min-hyuk smiled. A real smile. Not cold, not distant, just happy. That night, they fell asleep in the same bed. Ji-woo lay against his chest. Min-hyuk's arm wrapped around him protectively. Neither of them slept immediately. They just stayed like that, listening to each other breathe. Ji-woo whispered into the dark. Don't disappear. Min-hyuk held him tighter. I won't. And for the first time in their lives, neither of them felt alone. Part 7. The day the world tried to tear them apart again. The scandal broke on a Monday morning. Ji-woo didn't know at first. He was in the field, kneeling in the dirt, carefully checking the strawberries like he always did. The sky was clear. The air was calm, peaceful, too peaceful. His phone rang. He almost ignored it, almost, but something in his chest felt uneasy. He answered. Hello, Ji-woo. It was Soo Bin, his childhood friend from the neighboring farm. Her voice was panicked. Have you seen the news? Ji-woo frowned. Number. There was silence. Then she said carefully, it's about him. Ji-woo's heart stopped. Min-hyuk, turn on your TV. Ji-woo's hands trembled as he turned it on. The screen filled with reporters. Headlines flashed in bold red letters. Hansing CEO under fire. Board questions CEO's leadership. Billionaire risks empire for unknown farmer. Ji-woo's blood ran cold. They were talking about him. Calling him irrelevant, manipulative, a distraction. His chest tightened painfully. The reporter spoke clearly. Sources claim CEO Kang Min-hyuk's recent decisions have cost the company millions, raising concerns among shareholders. Ji-woo couldn't breathe. Some board members are reportedly considering a vote to remove him as CEO. Ji-woo's knees gave out. He fell onto the floor. Number. This was his fault. All of it. Because of him. Min-hyuk was losing everything. In Seoul, Kang Min-hyuk sat silently at the head of the boardroom table. The atmosphere was hostile, cold, familiar. He had lived in this world his entire life. But now, it felt like a cage. A board member slammed his hand on the table. What were you thinking? Min-hyuk didn't respond. Another spoke. You embarrassed this company. You chose a stranger over your responsibility. You've become reckless. Min-hyuk's eyes darkened slightly. Stranger. Ji-woo wasn't a stranger. He was everything. The chairman leaned forward, his voice sharp. You've changed. Min-hyuk met his gaze calmly. Yes. The room fell silent. The chairman frowned. You admit it? Min-hyuk didn't hesitate. Yes. Murmurs spread across the table. The chairman's voice turned cold. Then perhaps you are no longer fit to lead. Silence. Heavy. Threatening. Min-hyuk spoke quietly. If that's your decision, I'll accept it. Gasps filled the room. They hadn't expected that. They expected him to fight. To argue. To beg. But he didn't. Because power didn't matter anymore. Not compared to Ji-woo. Ji-woo stood outside Min-hyuk's office building. His heart pounded violently. He had never been here before. It was massive. Cold. Nothing like the farm. He didn't belong here. But he came anyway. Because Min-hyuk was hurting. And Ji-woo couldn't stay away. He stepped inside. People stared. Whispered. He heard them. That's him. The farmer. The one who ruined the CEO. Ji-woo's chest tightened painfully. He wanted to run. But he forced himself forward. He reached the top floor. The secretary looked surprised. Do you have an appointment? Ji-woo shook his head. Number. I'm sorry, you can't. The office door opened. Min-hyuk stepped out. And froze. Ji-woo. Ji-woo's eyes filled with tears. He ran to him. Min-hyuk caught him immediately. Ji-woo. I'm sorry. Min-hyuk froze. Ji-woo's voice broke. I'm sorry. Min-hyuk pulled back slightly. For what? Ji-woo's hands trembled. This is my fault. No. Yes. Ji-woo cried. You're losing everything because of me. Min-hyuk held his shoulders firmly. Look at me. Ji-woo couldn't. Min-hyuk's voice softened. Ji-woo. Slowly. Ji-woo looked up. Min-hyuk wiped his tears gently. This isn't your fault. Ji-woo whispered. They hate you. Min-hyuk answered simply. I don't care. Ji-woo's heart broke. I do. Silence. Ji-woo spoke the words he feared most. Maybe we should stop. Min-hyuk stopped breathing. What? Ji-woo's voice shook. If I leave, they'll stop hurting you. Min-hyuk's chest tightened painfully. No. Ji-woo continued. You can have your life back. No. You can be CEO again. Min-hyuk's voice broke. I don't want it. Ji-woo froze. Min-hyuk stepped closer. I want you. Ji-woo cried harder. But I'm ruining you. Min-hyuk shook his head. You saved me. Ji-woo's heart shattered. Min-hyuk whispered. You taught me how to live. Silence. Min-hyuk rested his forehead against Ji-woo's. I won't lose you. Ji-woo whispered weakly. What if you lose everything else? Min-hyuk answered. Then I'll still have you. Ji-woo broke completely. He clung to him, and Min-hyuk held him tighter. Because he knew. The world would keep trying to tear them apart. But he would fight it. Every time. Every day. For the rest of his life. Part 8. The choice that changed everything. The resignation letter was only one page. Simple. Clean. Final. Kang Min-hyuk stared at it for a long time. His name was signed at the bottom. The ink hadn't fully dried yet. One decision. One choice. And his entire life would change. He picked it up. For most people, this company was everything. Power. Money. Status. For Min-hyuk, it had been his cage. And now, he was finally ready to leave it. Not because he was weak. But because he had found something stronger. Someone stronger. Han Ji-woo. Ji-woo didn't know. He was at the farm, kneeling in the dirt like always. But he couldn't focus. His hands moved automatically. His heart wasn't there, it was in Seoul, with Min-hyuk. He hadn't slept, he hadn't eaten properly, because fear kept whispering to him, "You're going to lose him." Ji-woo's chest hurt. I shouldn't have gone to him. But he couldn't regret loving him, even if it destroyed him. A car approached. Ji-woo froze. His heart pounded. He knew that car. He stood up quickly. Min-hyuk stepped out. He wasn't wearing a suit. He wasn't dressed like a CEO. He looked free. Ji-woo ran to him. Min-hyuk. Min-hyuk smiled softly. Ji-woo. Ji-woo searched his face. What happened? Min-hyuk hesitated. Then he answered honestly, I resigned. Ji-woo stopped breathing. What? I'm not the CEO anymore. Silence. Ji-woo's world tilted. You're joking. I'm not. Ji-woo's hands trembled. Why? Min-hyuk stepped closer. Because I chose you. Ji-woo's heart shattered. No. Min-hyuk froze. Ji-woo shook his head. No, you can't do that. I already did. Min-hyuk, that was your life. Min-hyuk answered quietly. No. Ji-woo's tears fell. It was. Min-hyuk reached for him. Ji-woo stepped back. Why would you give up everything? Min-hyuk's voice broke slightly. Because none of it mattered without you. Ji-woo covered his mouth. He couldn't breathe. You're stupid. Min-hyuk laughed softly. I know. Ji-woo cried harder. You worked your whole life for that company. Min-hyuk nodded. Yes, and you threw it away. Min-hyuk shook his head. I didn't throw it away. He stepped closer. I let it go. Ji-woo's chest hurt. For me. Min-hyuk answered simply. Yes. Ji-woo broke. He grabbed Min-hyuk's shirt. What if you regret it? Min-hyuk didn't hesitate. I won't. How can you be sure? Min-hyuk lifted his hand and touched Ji-woo's face gently. Because when I'm with you. His voice softened. I'm happy. Ji-woo's tears fell faster. Min-hyuk whispered. I was never happy before. Silence. Ji-woo's heart couldn't take it. You're giving up your entire world. Min-hyuk answered. No. He smiled softly. I'm choosing my world. Ji-woo collapsed into his arms. Min-hyuk held him tightly. Like he always did. Like he always would. Ji-woo cried into his chest. You idiot. Min-hyuk smiled. Yes. What are you going to do now? Min-hyuk looked around. At the field. At the strawberries. At the home Ji-woo loved. He answered quietly. Can you teach me? Ji-woo blinked. Teach you? Min-hyuk nodded. How to live here. Ji-woo's heart stopped. You want to stay? Min-hyuk hesitated. I don't want to force you. Ji-woo's chest tightened. Min-hyuk continued. This is your home. Ji-woo whispered. It can be yours too. Min-hyuk stopped breathing. Ji-woo. Ji-woo looked at him. His eyes soft. Certain. Stay with me. Min-hyuk kissed him. Not hesitating. Not holding back. Ji-woo kissed him back immediately. Because this time, there was no fear, only love. When they pulled apart, Ji-woo rested his forehead against his. We'll figure it out together. Min-hyuk nodded. Together. For the first time in his life. Kang Min-hyuk had no title. No power. No empire. But he had something far greater. A home, and the man he loved waiting for him in it. That evening, Min-hyuk stood in the field. Holding a basket. Ji-woo stood beside him. Like this, Ji-woo said softly, guiding his hand. Min-hyuk smiled. I remember. Ji-woo smiled back, and Min-hyuk realized. He didn't regret anything. Not a single thing. Part 9. Learning to belong. Farm life was harder than Kang Min-hyuk expected. Much harder. He woke before sunrise. His body ached in places he didn't know existed. His hands, once smooth and unmarked, were now covered in small cuts and healing blisters. And yet, he had never slept better. Min-hyuk opened his eyes slowly. Warmth rested against his chest. Ji-woo, he was still asleep. His soft brown hair fell over his forehead, his breathing slow and peaceful. Min-hyuk smiled faintly. Carefully, he brushed a strand of hair away from Ji-woo's face. Ji-woo stirred slightly. Min-hyuk, his voice was thick with sleep. I'm here, Min-hyuk whispered. Ji-woo blinked up at him. What time is it? Early. Ji-woo groaned softly and buried his face in Min-hyuk's chest. 5 more minutes. Min-hyuk chuckled quietly. You said that yesterday, and the day before. Ji-woo didn't deny it. Min-hyuk held him closer. He loved moments like this. Simple, quiet, real. He had spent his entire life waking up alone. Cold sheets, empty rooms. Now, he woke up with someone in his arms. Someone who loved him. Someone who chose him. Ji-woo finally sat up, rubbing his eyes. We should work. Min-hyuk nodded. Yes, but neither of them moved immediately. They just looked at each other. Ji-woo smiled shyly. You're staring. Min-hyuk answered honestly. I like looking at you. Ji-woo's face turned red. You're unfair in the morning. Min-hyuk leaned forward and kissed him softly. Ji-woo melted into it. Slow, gentle, loving. When they pulled apart, Ji-woo whispered, "Let's go before the strawberries get jealous." Min-hyuk laughed. A real laugh. One Ji-woo never got tired of hearing. The villagers noticed him. Of course they did. How could they not? Kang Min-hyuk didn't belong here. Not with his tall frame. Not with his quiet elegance. Not with his face they recognized from the news. They whispered when he passed. They say he gave up everything. For that farmer's boy, he won't last. He'll leave. Min-hyuk heard them, but he didn't respond, because he had already made his choice. One afternoon, Ji-woo found him sitting alone near the field. Min-hyuk stared at his hands. Ji-woo walked over. "Does it hurt?" Min-hyuk looked up. "What?" Ji-woo gently took his hand. His fingers traced the small cuts. The blisters. Min-hyuk shook his head. No, it was a lie, but he didn't want Ji-woo to worry. Ji-woo frowned slightly. "You can tell me the truth." Min-hyuk hesitated, then admitted quietly, "A little." Ji-woo's expression softened. "You don't have to do this." Min-hyuk froze. Ji-woo continued, "You can stop." Min-hyuk pulled his hand back gently. "No." Ji-woo blinked. "I want to." Ji-woo's chest tightened. "Why?" Min-hyuk looked at him. His eyes steady. "Because this is your world." Ji-woo's breath caught. "And I want to belong in it." Ji-woo couldn't speak. Min-hyuk reached for him. "Do I?" Ji-woo's eyes filled with emotion. "You do." Min-hyuk smiled softly. Ji-woo leaned forward and kissed his injured hand. Min-hyuk froze. "Ji-woo." Ji-woo whispered, "Thank you for staying." Min-hyuk answered, "There's nowhere else I'd rather be." Not everyone was kind. One evening, Ji-woo overheard a group of villagers talking. "He's just playing farmer. He'll get bored. He'll leave and break Ji-woo's heart." Ji-woo's chest tightened painfully. He stepped forward. "He won't." They looked surprised. Ji-woo's hands trembled slightly. But his voice was firm. "He's not like that." They didn't argue, but Ji-woo could see it in their eyes. They didn't believe him. Ji-woo walked away. His heart hurt, because a small part of him was still afraid. Afraid of losing him. That night, Ji-woo lay in Min-hyuk's arms. Silent. Min-hyuk noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" Ji-woo shook his head. "Nothing." Min-hyuk didn't believe him. He turned him gently. "Ji-woo." Ji-woo's eyes filled with tears. "They said you'll leave." Min-hyuk's chest tightened. He held him closer. "I won't." Ji-woo whispered. "Promise." Min-hyuk didn't hesitate. "I promise." Ji-woo buried his face in his chest. "I love you." Min-hyuk kissed his hair. "I love you too." And he meant it. With everything he was. With everything he had left. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Min-hyuk learned. He learned how to plant. How to harvest. How to live slowly. How to love without fear. And Ji-woo learned how to trust. One morning, Ji-woo watched Min-hyuk laugh with Soo-bin. His smile was bright, carefree, beautiful. Ji-woo's chest filled with warmth. Because Min-hyuk didn't look like a billionaire anymore. He looked like someone who belonged. He looked like someone who was home. That night, Ji-woo whispered. "You've changed." Min-hyuk asked, "Is that bad?" Ji-woo smiled. "Number." He kissed him softly. "It's everything." Part 10. Where he belonged. The first time Min-jae saw the finished greenhouse, he cried. He hadn't meant to. He had only gone out early that morning to check the irrigation lines. The sun had just begun to rise, painting the sky in soft gold and pale pink. The air smelled like earth and new beginnings. And there it was, standing at the far end of the field. Glass walls, white frames, strong, beautiful, real. Min-jae stopped walking. His breath caught. It was bigger than he expected. Perfect. He stepped closer slowly, his fingers trembling as he reached out and touched the glass. It was cool under his skin. Behind him, he heard footsteps. He didn't turn around. "You finished it." Silence. Then, "Yes." Young-woo's voice. Quiet, careful. Min-jae turned. Young-woo stood a few steps away, his hands in his coat pockets, his dark hair slightly messy from the wind. He looked nervous. Min-jae had never seen him look nervous before. "I wanted to surprise you," Young-woo said softly. Min-jae swallowed. "You did." His voice broke. He looked back at the greenhouse. "It's beautiful." Young-woo watched him carefully. "I wasn't sure if you'd like it." Min-jae let out a small, disbelieving laugh. "Like it?" He turned back to him, his eyes shining. "I love it." Young-woo's shoulders relaxed. "Just a little." "That's good." Min-jae walked toward him slowly. "You really did all this?" "Yes." "Why?" Young-woo hesitated. Then he said quietly, "Because it's your dream." Min-jae's chest tightened. Young-woo continued, "And because His voice grew softer. I want to be part of it. Silence fell between them. The wind moved through the fields. Min-jae stepped closer. He was standing so close now. Close enough to see the faint shadows under Young-woo's eyes. Close enough to hear his breathing. You already are. Young-woo's eyes flickered. Min-jae hesitated. Then, slowly, he reached out and took Young-woo's hand. Young-woo froze. Min-jae's hand was warm. Gentle. Real. You never forced me, Min-jae said quietly. You never took anything from me. His fingers tightened slightly. You stayed. Young-woo's voice was barely a whisper. I wanted to. Min-jae smiled softly. I know. Silence. Young-woo looked at him like he wanted to say something. Like he was afraid to. Min-jae tilted his head slightly. What is it? Young-woo hesitated. Then, I'm afraid. Min-jae blinked. Of what? Young-woo's jaw tightened slightly. Of losing this. His fingers tightened around Min-jae's hand. Of losing you. Min-jae's heart ached. He stepped closer. So don't. Young-woo looked at him. Min-jae smiled gently. I'm not going anywhere. Something in Young-woo's expression broke. His hand came up slowly. Carefully, he touched Min-jae's face. Like he was afraid he'd disappear. Are you sure? Min-jae leaned into his touch. Yes. Young-woo's voice was quiet. Even though I'm selfish, Min-jae smiled faintly. Yes. Even though I wanted to take this land from you. Yes. Even though I love you so much it scares me. Min-jae froze. The world stopped. Young-woo froze too. Like he hadn't meant to say it. Like it had just slipped out. Silence. Heavy. Fragile. Min-jae's heart pounded. You love me. Young-woo closed his eyes briefly. Then opened them. Yes. No hesitation. No denial. Just truth. I love you. Min-jae felt tears fill his eyes. He laughed softly. You're unfair. Young-woo frowned slightly. Why? Min-jae smiled through his tears. Because I love you too. Young-woo's breath stopped. What? Min-jae's voice trembled. I tried not to. He laughed weakly. I really tried. His fingers tightened on Young-woo's coat. But you stayed. His voice broke. You stayed when you didn't have to. Tears slid down his cheeks. You chose me. Young-woo's hands moved suddenly. He pulled Min-jae into his arms. Tight. Desperate. Like he'd been holding himself back for too long. Min-jae buried his face in his chest. Young-woo's heart was beating fast. Just like his. I love you, Young-woo whispered. Again. And again. And again. Min-jae smiled. I know. They stayed like that for a long time. Holding each other. Breathing each other in. Finally, Young-woo pulled back slightly. He looked at him carefully. Can I kiss you? Min-jae's face turned red. He nodded. Slowly. Yes. Young-woo leaned down. Gently. Carefully. Their lips met. Soft. Warm. Real. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was home. Min-jae's fingers tightened in Young-woo's coat. Young-woo's hand rested on his waist. When they pulled apart, they were both breathing harder. Min-jae laughed softly. That was my first kiss. Young-woo blinked. It was. Min-jae nodded shyly. Young-woo smiled. Soft. You deserve many more. Min-jae laughed. With you. Young-woo's voice was quiet. If you'll let me. Min-jae smiled. I will. Young-woo rested his forehead against his. Stay with me. Min-jae shook his head slightly. Young-woo's heart dropped. Then Min-jae said, stay with me. Young-woo froze. This is my home. Min-jae smiled. And now, it's yours too. Young-woo's chest tightened. Are you sure? Min-jae nodded. Yes. He took his hand again. Let's build something together. Young-woo squeezed his hand. Okay. The sun rose higher. The fields glowed. And for the first time in his life, Young-woo wasn't standing above the world. He was standing beside someone. Where he belonged. Epilogue. Seasons that stayed. 5 years later, the greenhouse had become the heart of everything. It stood tall and proud at the center of the land, its glass walls glowing gold under the afternoon sun. Inside, rows of vibrant green stretched endlessly, lettuce, herbs, strawberries, and flowers that Min-jae had once only dreamed of growing. Now, they were real. All of it was real. Min-jae stood inside, carefully trimming a row of basil. His hands moved with practiced ease, his expression peaceful. He looked older now, not worn, not tired, just fuller, happier. Behind him, he heard familiar footsteps. Slow, heavy, comforting. He smiled without turning. You're back early. Strong arms wrapped around his waist from behind. Young-woo rested his chin on his shoulder. I finished my meeting faster. His voice was softer than it used to be years ago. Warmer. Min-jae leaned back into him naturally. You said you'd be late. I wanted to come home. Home. He said it so easily now. Min-jae turned his head slightly. You say that more these days. Young-woo hummed. Because it's true. Min-jae smiled. Young-woo pressed a small kiss against his cheek. You've been working all day. So have you. Young-woo buried his face briefly in Min-jae's neck. I missed you. Min-jae laughed softly. You saw me this morning. That was a long time ago. Min-jae turned in his arms. Young-woo still wore his dress shirt, the sleeves rolled up, his tie gone. His hair was slightly messy from the wind. He looked less like a billionaire now. More like someone who belonged here. Min-jae reached up and fixed his collar absent-mindedly. You should change. You'll ruin your clothes. Young-woo watched him carefully. I like it when you worry about me. Min-jae rolled his eyes lightly. I always worry about you. I know. Young-woo kissed his forehead. And I love you for it. Min-jae's face still turned red when he said things like that. Even after 5 years, even after countless kisses, even after sharing the same bed, some things never changed, and Young-woo hoped they never would. Their life had settled into something gentle. Young-woo still ran his company. But he wasn't consumed by it anymore. He delegated. He left early. He came home. Always home. And Min-jae had built something incredible. Their farm had grown into one of the most respected organic producers in the region. Not because of Young-woo's money, but because of Min-jae's heart. His produce was known for its quality. His name was known for his honesty. People trusted him, and Young-woo was proud. So proud. That evening, they sat on the porch together. Just like they used to. The sky burned orange and pink. The fields stretched endlessly before them. Young-woo held Min-jae's hand. He still did that, every chance he got. Like he was afraid to let go. Min-jae rested his head on his shoulder. Do you regret it? Young-woo frowned slightly. Regret what? Staying. Young-woo turned to him immediately. No. His answer was firm. Certain. Never. Min-jae studied his face. You gave up a lot. Young-woo shook his head. I gained everything. Min-jae's fingers tightened in his. Young-woo continued quietly. I spent my whole life building an empire. He looked out at the fields. And none of it made me happy. He looked at Min-jae. But you did. Min-jae's eyes softened. Young-woo brought his hand to his lips and kissed it. You still do. Min-jae smiled. You're cheesy. Young-woo smirked slightly. You love it. I do. They fell into comfortable silence. The wind moved through the crops. The same wind that had watched them fall in love. The same wind that had watched them choose each other. Again and again. Min-jae spoke quietly. Do you remember the first time you came here? Young-woo smiled. Faintly. You glared at me. Min-jae laughed. You tried to buy my land. You refused. I was angry. I was fascinated. Min-jae looked up at him. Fascinated. Young-woo nodded. You were the first person who didn't care who I was. He touched Min-jae's cheek gently. You saw me. Not the billionaire. Not the power. Just him. Min-jae leaned into his hand. I saw someone lonely. Young-woo's chest tightened. He still was. Sometimes. But not anymore. Not like before. Because now, he wasn't alone. A small bark broke the silence. They both looked down. A golden retriever ran toward them happily. Min-jae laughed. Sunny. The dog jumped onto the porch, wagging its tail wildly. Young-woo sighed. He likes you more. Min-jae grinned. Because I feed him. Young-woo narrowed his eyes. I feed him too. You give him expensive food. And, Min-jae kissed his cheek quickly. He likes simple things. Young-woo paused, then smiled softly. I understand that. Sunny barked again, resting his head on Min-jae's lap. Min-jae scratched behind his ears. This is nice. Young-woo nodded. Yes, it was more than nice. It was everything. Later that night, they lay in bed together. The window was open. The sound of the fields filled the room. Min-jae rested against Young-woo's chest. Young-woo held him close. He still did that too. Every night, like a promise. Young-woo, yes. Are you happy? Young-woo didn't hesitate. Yes. Min-jae smiled. Me too. Young-woo kissed his hair. I love you. Min-jae whispered back. I love you too. And outside, the greenhouse stood strong. The fields stretched endlessly, and the land that had once almost separated them, had become the place that kept them together. Not as a billionaire, not as a farmer, but as two people, who chose each other, in every season, and every season after. 5 years later, the greenhouse had become the heart of everything. It stood tall and proud at the center of the land, its glass walls glowing gold under the afternoon sun. Inside, rows of vibrant green stretched endlessly, lettuce, herbs, strawberries, and flowers that Min-jae had once only dreamed of growing. Now, they were real. All of it was real. Min-jae stood inside, carefully trimming a row of basil. His hands moved with practiced ease, his expression peaceful. He looked older now, not worn, not tired, just fuller, happier. Behind him, he heard familiar footsteps. Slow, heavy, comforting. He smiled without turning. "You're back early." Strong arms wrapped around his waist from behind. Youngwoo rested his chin on his shoulder. "I finished my meeting faster." His voice was softer than it used to be years ago. Warmer. Min-jae leaned back into him naturally. "You said you'd be late." "I wanted to come home." "Home." He said it so easily now. Min-jae turned his head slightly. "You say that more these days." Youngwoo hummed. "Because it's true." Min-jae smiled. Youngwoo pressed a small kiss against his cheek. "You've been working all day." "So have you." Youngwoo buried his face briefly in Min-jae's neck. "I missed you." Min-jae laughed softly. "You saw me this morning." "That was a long time ago." Min-jae turned in his arms. Youngwoo still wore his dress shirt, the sleeves rolled up, his tie gone. His hair was slightly messy from the wind. He looked less like a billionaire now. More like someone who belonged here. Min-jae reached up and fixed his collar absent-mindedly. "You should change. You'll ruin your clothes." Youngwoo watched him carefully. "I like it when you worry about me." Min-jae rolled his eyes lightly. "I always worry about you." "I know." Youngwoo kissed his forehead. "And I love you for it." Min-jae's face still turned red when he said things like that. Even after 5 years, even after countless kisses, even after sharing the same bed, some things never changed, and Youngwoo hoped they never would. Their life had settled into something gentle. Youngwoo still ran his company. But he wasn't consumed by it anymore. He delegated. He left early. He came home. Always home. And Min-jae had built something incredible. Their farm had grown into one of the most respected organic producers in the region. Not because of Youngwoo's money, but because of Min-jae's heart. His produce was known for its quality. His name was known for his honesty. People trusted him, and Youngwoo was proud. So proud. That evening, they sat on the porch together. Just like they used to. The sky burned orange and pink. The fields stretched endlessly before them. Youngwoo held Min-jae's hand. He still did that, every chance he got, like he was afraid to let go. Min-jae rested his head on his shoulder. "Do you regret it?" Youngwoo frowned slightly. "Regret what?" "Staying." Youngwoo turned to him immediately. "No." His answer was firm, certain. "Never." Min-jae studied his face. "You gave up a lot." Youngwoo shook his head. "I gained everything." Min-jae's fingers tightened in his. Youngwoo continued quietly. "I spent my whole life building an empire." He looked out at the fields. "And none of it made me happy." He looked at Min-jae. "But you did." Min-jae's eyes softened. Youngwoo brought his hand to his lips and kissed it. "You still do." Min-jae smiled. "You're cheesy." Youngwoo smirked slightly. "You love it." "I do." They fell into comfortable silence. The wind moved through the crops. The same wind that had watched them fall in love. The same wind that had watched them choose each other. Again and again. Min-jae spoke quietly. "Do you remember the first time you came here?" Youngwoo smiled faintly. "You glared at me." Min-jae laughed. "You tried to buy my land. You refused." "I was angry. I was fascinated." Min-jae looked up at him. "Fascinated?" Youngwoo nodded. "You were the first person who didn't care who I was." He touched Min-jae's cheek gently. "You saw me. Not the billionaire. Not the power. Just him." Min-jae leaned into his hand. "I saw someone lonely." Youngwoo's chest tightened. He still was. Sometimes. But not anymore. Not like before. Because now, he wasn't alone. A small bark broke the silence. They both looked down. A golden retriever ran toward them happily. Min-jae laughed. "Sunny." The dog jumped onto the porch, wagging its tail wildly. Youngwoo sighed. "He likes you more." Min-jae grinned. "Because I feed him." Youngwoo narrowed his eyes. "I feed him too. You give him expensive food." And, Min-jae kissed his cheek quickly. "He likes simple things." Youngwoo paused, then smiled softly. "I understand that." Sunny barked again, resting his head on Min-jae's lap. Min-jae scratched behind his ears. "This is nice." Youngwoo nodded. Yes, it was more than nice. It was everything. Later that night, they lay in bed together. The window was open. The sound of the fields filled the room. Min-jae rested against Youngwoo's chest. Youngwoo held him close. He still did that too. Every night, like a promise. "Youngwoo, yes. Are you happy?" Youngwoo didn't hesitate. "Yes." Min-jae smiled. "Me too." Youngwoo kissed his hair. "I love you." Min-jae whispered back. "I love you too." And outside, the greenhouse stood strong. The fields stretched endlessly, and the land that had once almost separated them had become the place that kept them together. Not as a billionaire, not as a farmer, but as two people who chose each other in every season, and every season after. The end. If you like the story, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notifications for more amazing stories.